Hey, what's up, guys? This is Johnny here, otherwise known as Bridge Teabag, and today I am bringing you guys a different video in my repertoire. Today, it's not a live commentary. We are not talking about the game. Today, we are going to talk about movies. A specific one, in fact, the one I have just seen, if you could not have guessed by the title of this video, and what movie just came out about 4 hours ago. Well, if you haven't guessed already, I'm going to spoil it for you. This movie is The Hobbit. Now, before I get into the juicy, nitty-gritty stuff of the movie and the details and specs, I want to do a little background history because this movie was filmed and directed by Peter Jackson, who's done another adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's series of adventures. He did Lord of the Rings, if you did not know that, but I'm sure most of you do. But originally, Peter Jackson and Guillermo del Toro started writing this. They started writing the movie. Peter Jackson was thinking Guillermo del Toro would direct it. He thought having a new fresh spin would bring something different to the audience. But when Guillermo del Toro left, can't pronounce his name, sorry, Peter Jackson took on the role, and now we are left with this movie. Let's get into it. The movie stars famous stars such as Ian McKellen, Cate Blanchett, Richard Armitage, Christopher Lee, who is 90 years old, and of course, Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins. This movie did have a great cast lineup, but another thing to top it all off is that it had a very controversial outlook to it. Because standard movies are filmed in 30 frames per second, and if they're 3D, they get put into 3D after. Whereas this movie was filmed in 48 frames per second with the new Red Epic cameras, and they're filmed directly into 3D, thus giving it a more flat and more realistic look, making the colors more vibrant and pop out more on the screen. I think this is a good thing. I love the look of The Hobbit because I just saw it midnight release, 10 o'clock, and the look of it was amazing. The detail they put into everything. I'm personally fine with 48 frames a second, especially when it's in IMAX 3D. You get the whole experience. Now, before I get into my take on the movie, what I thought of it, and everything, after I told you all this stuff you need to know, I will tell you a little bit about the story. The Hobbit is based on, obviously, one Hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, who was thrust into adventure by Gandalf, played by Ian McKellen. And it's a group of dwarves gone to take back their homeland, Erebor, and their treasure in the mountain, which is guarded by a dragon Smaug. It's their adventure to the mountain and taking back the mountain from Smaug and all the stuff that happens in between. That's the Hobbit story. I'm sorry if there's a bit of spoilers, but who hasn't read The Hobbit? Seriously. Before I get into my opinion on what the movie is, I will just go over quickly a bit of summary. The Hobbit unexpected journey follows the title character Bilbo Baggins, who is swept in an epic quest to reclaim the lost dwarf kingdom of Erebor, which was long ago conquered by the dragon Smaug. He's approached out of the blue by the wizard Gandalf the Grey. Bilbo finds himself joining a company of 13 dwarves, to make it even number 14, just by the way, led by legendary warrior Thorin Oakenshield. Basically, the whole story is about them going on an adventure, running into obstacles, and taking back the mountain from Smaug. With all of that technical and story stuff out of the way, here is my review. Out of 10, I would give it probably a 9. It's not as good as The Godfather. It's not as good as Shawshank Redemption. But in my opinion, right now, it seems better to me than Lord of the Rings. It had top of the line film quality, 48 frames per second, worked perfectly. I know they even had people just animating the beards to go with the wind and stuff. That was their job, to animate the beards. And then the colors were bright. The story, let's talk about the story. They did add in an extra orc, which does play along nicely because they do get chased by wolves later on and go hide up in trees, and goblins come, but instead of goblins it was orcs, so it does kind of play nicely. and to make it more movie-like, the only weird thing I thought was Radagast the wizard, which kind of makes sense because they're putting the third movie of Necromancers. Radagast, like, is a wizard. He's a brown wizard. Like, it's like karate wizards. That's what I think it is. But he's a weird wizard. He's in the forest, and he rides a sleigh guided by hares. And basically, he sees all these spiders going. He follows it to a temple, and then runs into an encounter with a necromancer, which I guess makes sense because it leads on to what they're making the third movie out of, which is a bit from the appendix of The Return of the King, which talks about necromancers and the dwarves battle right about in the Hobbit time. So I guess that makes sense. Other than that, the story was good, great. I can see how he made it into film, adding in more action than there actually was. Like, there's different things done differently. Like, me reading the book, it feels kind of weird being like, oh, that's not right. But thinking of it in a movie, no one would really want to watch the book in movie form. So he did pull off that adaptation, like from the transition from book to movie, really good. The next thing he did well was the casting. Ian McKellen, obviously. Gandalf. Kate Blanchett, obviously. Galadriel. And Christopher Lee, 90 years old. Saruman, he's back. He's good in this one, by the way. I'm sure you've all seen Lord of the Rings and seen what happens, but if you haven't, I'm sorry for spoiling it. I forgot to mention there's spoilers in this. But then there's Richard Armitage, who does a great job in playing Thorin. He is very prevalent. He seems very imposing. He seems like he's a good leader in the movie. And then Martin Freeman for Bilbo is a very good choice. I know they've gone through other choices, like they were thinking of casting Jack Black as Bilbo, I heard. Which just sounds bizarre to me. I don't know why you would ever think of that, but Martin Freeman did a stellar job playing it. What else is good about the movie? There's not really anything I can say bad. You know what the bad thing was? The movie was more comical than serious as Lord of the Rings, so it's a bit of a different approach. It was lighthearted, with more jokes and stuff, but I guess Gimli was the comic relief in Lord of the Rings, and there's 13 dwarves in this, so I guess you can kind of think of it that way, as dwarves as comic reliefs. But the weird thing was the Goblin King under the mountain. He had like a giant neck, and his death was just weird. Gandalf hit him, and then like he said some line, but really in the book Gandalf comes out of nowhere, doesn't even kill anyone else, and just slices his head off. Either way, they did a great job. This is a must-see movie. Well, if you read the book and you're a fan of any of the Lord of the Rings, this is a must-see. I personally enjoyed it very much. I'm probably gonna go see it again. Anyways, guys, that's my review. It probably wasn't as detailed as I thought, but we're running out of time here. So, as for next time, I'll see you guys later.